Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We are going to make some sense out of the latest signals coming from the greater Phoenix real estate market. We're looking specifically at the June 2026 data provided by ARMLS, and let me tell you, this month's numbers are absolutely fascinating. If you've been keeping an eye on things, you know that summer in the valley always brings a shift in dynamics. But what's happening right now? It's basically a masterclass in why you can't just look at surface level numbers. And this brings us to a really massive question. Is the Phoenix market actually cooling down, or is it quietly heating up? I mean, if you just skim the headlines, you might genuinely think the market is taking a nap. But as we're going to dig into today, there is a huge difference between the surface level narrative and the underlying truth of what buyers and sellers are actually doing out there. I kind of like to call this the summer mirage. Looking at the month-over-month data, we see a sharp pullback across the board. New listings dropped from May, pending contracts pulled back. But let's take a second and think about why that is, right? June is when that triple-digit heat really sets in across Phoenix. School schedules change, families go on vacation, and frankly, absolutely nobody wants to be moving heavy boxes when it's 110 degrees outside. So it's a completely normal seasonal rhythm for sellers to hold off and buyers to just slow down. But that month-over-month dip, it's completely an illusion masking a much stronger underlying trend. Section 1. Real story. Shrinking supply. Okay, let's dive into this. To find that real story, we have to look past the intense summer heat and check the year-over-year data. And honestly, it completely flips the script on that whole summer slowdown narrative. When we compare this June to June of last year, active inventory isn't just flat. It's actually down by 5.3%. There are simply fewer homes on the market. But wait, it gets better? Those homes that actually are on the market, they're absorbing 14% faster than they were a year ago. In fact, actual sales and ending contracts are running ahead of last June. So we've got fewer homes available, and the ones that are available are getting snapped up way quicker. So just as a super quick refresher on one of our favorite industry metrics, months of supply measures exactly how long it would take to completely sell out of our current inventory at today's pace. It's really our ultimate barometer for market balance. So what is that exact number for Phoenix right now? It's 3.38. We currently have 3.38 months of supply, and that number is down 12% year over year. Now, you might be wondering, why does this matter to me? Well, because in real estate, anything under roughly 4 to 5 months of supply is generally considered favorable to sellers. The Valley has spent the better part of a year drifting back toward that seller-friendly threshold, which proves the market is quietly regaining its balance. Now let's flip that coin for a second and look at the absorption rate. If supply tells us how long inventory lasts, this gives us the inverse. It's the exact percentage of active inventory successfully selling and dropping off the market each month. And check out this stat, 29.54%. Nearly 30% of all active inventory in Greater Phoenix is being absorbed each month. And crucially, that rate is up almost 14% from last year. So the absolutely crucial point here is that both of these metrics, shrinking supply and climbing absorption, are confirming the exact same reality. The market conditions are subtly but surely shifting power back into the hands of sellers after a pretty long stretch of buyer-friendly conditions.
Section 2. Unpacking Phoenix home prices. Moving right along.
So, with supply shrinking and homes moving faster, how exactly is this impacting values? To really understand Phoenix pricing right now, you have to look at both the average and the median sale prices. If you just look at one, it's going to give you a really incomplete and potentially very misleading picture of what your home, or maybe the home you want to buy, is actually worth. Okay, here's the big aha moment in the data. The average sale price in Phoenix climbed to $614,729. That's an increase of nearly 4% from a year ago. But look at the median sale price. It held almost perfectly flat at $450,000. So why the huge gap? It's essentially because the upper end of the market, those luxury properties and gorgeous view lot sales, is incredibly strong right now. Those multi-million-dollar sales pull the average price way up. But the median price, which is the exact middle of the market, tells us that for the typical everyday home, values have basically remained stable and steady. And we see this stability reflected perfectly in how sellers are actually behaving. The median new listing price right now is $469,000. That is essentially unchanged year over year. And honestly, this is a fantastic sign of a healthy market. It suggests that today's sellers are pricing their homes realistically, based on the data, rather than getting greedy and trying to chase an overheated market. And this next bit of data brilliantly illustrates what happens when sellers don't price realistically. The average listing is sitting there for 85 days, which is up from 79 days last year. But the median days on market? Just 58 days. It has barely moved since last June. What this really means is that if you have a typical, well-priced home, it is moving fast. We're talking under 2 months. That stretched out 85-day average is really just a reflection of overpriced or maybe highly niche listings just sitting on the market and dragging the whole average down. Section 3. What this means for you. Let's tie this all together. So we've got conflicting surface data versus the underlying reality, right? We've got rising averages but totally flat medians. What does this actually mean for you as you're sitting there planning your next real estate move? Well, it means you absolutely cannot navigate this market alone or with a total novice. You need an expert who can interpret these really nuanced signals. And this is exactly where Brian Staley of Phoenix Homes comes in. Brian has been in Arizona real estate since 1992. That is over 35 years of guiding clients through literally every conceivable market cycle. He's an associate broker holding CRS, GRI, and ABR designations. To put that into perspective, those credentials place him in the top 4% of realtors nationwide. Plus, his decades in the Valley mean he's built incredibly deep relationships with local home builders, contractors, and fellow agents. But data and credentials, that's really only half the equation. The other half is trust. Brian's philosophy is completely rooted in listening first, acting with total integrity, and putting his clients' best interests above all else. When the market is sending mixed signals, like when the surface looks slow but the underlying reality is actually speeding up, having a guide who listens to your specific needs and acts with total integrity is, without a doubt, the most valuable asset you can have. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. As you look towards your next real estate transaction in Greater Phoenix, you kind of have to ask yourself, are you basing your strategy on the summer mirage, or are you going to capitalize on the underlying truth of a tightening market? The data is clear, but the strategy is personal. If you're ready to make a move based on facts and not illusions, it might just be time to schedule a consultation with Phoenix Homes and put Brian Staley to work for you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep looking past the surface.